Hi, my name is Elida Sobalvarro, and today I want to talk about food affordability and availability. So, do any of these places look familiar? Or maybe you've seen these, maybe have even eaten in one of these places in one of your neighborhoods or in someone else's neighborhood. Well, these are only some of the junk food locations that I drive by on my way to work. And I only work 2.2 miles away from my house, and there are at least 15 fast food locations like these, but only one Safeway. And there's no mention of a Whole Foods. Now, I have all of these to choose from, and they're so easy to stop by, and they're so inexpensive and take no time at all when I'm in a rush, and it's great. And you would think that all this food availability and businesses are beneficial to the community, but it's actually doing more harm to us than we realize. It's targeting a specific group of people as well. Now, those living in low income communities, which are mostly made up of minority ethnic groups, suffer within this plethora of unhealthy foods as their only option. The area I live in within South San Francisco, California, is predominantly made up of low income Latinos. And due to the limited availability and affordability of food, minority groups are suffering through severe health risks. Now, I'll focus on the challenges, particularly within the United States, but I want to describe to you the affordability or the lack of affordability that families have for food around the world. So, my mom was born in Nicaragua, and during the massive earthquake in December of 1972 that destroyed many parts of the entire country, including its capital, Managua, which is where my family's from, completely wiped away schools, buildings, communities. And one of the most disastrous occurrences was in the neighborhood that my mom lived in. And unfortunately, her home was completely destroyed. And they had no source of income to provide for 15 children and 10 adults that all lived under that same roof. Now, they collected what they could from the remnants of their home or the scraps on the floors, like little stickers which they sold for a few cents, only to be able to buy beans and tortillas. Now, they ate nothing but beans and tortillas for 2 years with the occasional plantain. And every single day they wondered how they were going to feed their entire family. Now, my grandmother would a lot of the times go without eating because she wanted to provide for the children, to her children. And now that was around 40 years ago in a third world country. There should be absolutely no similarities from that and the United States of today. But unfortunately, Feeding America reported on September 19th, 2013, that 49 million people in the United States, including nearly 16 million children, live at risk because of hunger, which is due to the lack of money to buy food and let alone nutritious food. So their only alternative is to hit up a McDonald's dollar menu every day and fill their stomachs with at least something that's even barely considered edible. Now, according to a study done in the UK by the University of Cambridge, it shows that it is 3 times more expensive to buy healthy food compared to junk food. If you had the option to pay $3 for an entire meal and you had to feed yourself and 4 of your children, that comes out to $15. If you buy healthy food for your family, it costs $45. Most people have at least 3 meals a day. So that means it would be $45 for the junk food for one day compared to $135 for just one day of feeding your family. Now, some low-income families make $135 in a week or possibly more time than that. So it's simply impossible for them to be able to afford these healthy foods to feed their kids and their families because their circumstances make it impossible for them to do so. Unfortunately, the more junk food we consume, the sicker our body gets, and eating high sugary, salty, cholesterol, trans fat driven food is not what our bodies were made to ingest. Eating these unhealthy foods makes us more prone to having high cholesterol, high blood pressure, strokes, cardiac failure, heart attacks, cancer, and the main one to strike Latin American communities, diabetes type 2. Now, I know I just listed a whole bunch of scary words, and you may not think that they apply to you, but this could very well be a real threat to you one day. Now, the sad thing, but also the good thing about diabetes type 2 is that it is very preventable. The same way we have anti-tobacco messages because now we understand that it's poisonous to our body, we should bring out this awareness about junk food and the food that we eat. Now, my tia has struggled with diabetes for years now because of how bad she used to eat. She would constantly go through drive-thrus and fast food joints to feed herself and her 8 children when they first came to the United States because they couldn't afford to buy the fancy organic things and the expensive proteins from those high-end food market stores. And now she has to take insulin regularly and is restricted on what she can eat. She has to constantly monitor her blood pressure, cholesterol levels, and is always tired and prone to other diseases. Luckily, most of her kids were old enough to get their own jobs and to discover different foods, so they didn't have to develop this need for junk food, but unfortunately her youngest sons were not as lucky, and now they are at risk of getting diabetes type 2. Now, I mentioned from the ingredients in fast food and their unnatural existence, and some of us have heard of the documentary Super Size Me, where they focus on the detrimental effects of eating McDonald's for 30 days straight, and what that can do to your health and to your body. They describe here not only the health risks, but also how the government supports these unhealthy food systems. Food Inc. also illustrates the government-subsidized farms that control what is produced in these farms, how animals and plants are treated, and what the product is used for. For example, what combination of chicken mush is put into our chicken McNuggets. And if the United States government is financially and legally supporting these hazardous food industries that affect the entire population and plague low-income communities, then what can we do to change it? So, I'm sure we're all aware that eating junk food is bad and we should stop eating unhealthy products. And we know that instead of going to Burger King and Taco Bell every day, we should exchange it with a balanced home-cooked meal. But sadly, people that cannot afford to buy these healthier foods know the same facts and know that they are harming themselves, but they don't know what else to do to prevent it. Now, this doesn't only affect minority groups if they're unhealthy, but also the entire population, because many of the talented future professionals that will influence the United States come from these communities. And if we can't foster healthy living and eating within these communities, our country will miss out on all that they have to offer. If we continue to support the current food system, it will continue to grow the correlation between low-income communities and their negative health. And this will affect the generations in the future and lower our life expectations. And so we can no longer collectively act passively towards this issue. We have to treat it like a crisis, because only when we look and think of it as a crisis is when we collectively stand up to make a change. So there's things that we can all do to help shift the trajectory of unhealthy eating in the United States, like get involved with local organizations in your community that encourage and provide healthy, inexpensive food, or teach others of how certain healthy foods can be affordable. It's important to learn how to eat healthy on a budget because it's harder to close the income gap, but easier to close the health gap. There are alternatives to junk food. And as an individual, support your local farmers markets, boycott against the injustices done by the fast food industries, rally to influence local, state, and federal government organizations to make a change in their food policies and the allocation of money that they put towards it. Support healthy eating in public and private education services for children. Now, Michelle Obama organized and created a Let's Move campaign to foster a healthy lifestyle and food for children. The First Lady sees the negative consequences that this has on millions of people, and she has the power to make that initiative. Michelle Obama's priority to reduce the rates of childhood obesity in America by eliminating food deserts is fantastic. Making urban gardens, mobile markets, and having supermarkets accept food stamps are all great ways to decrease food deserts and the chances of people becoming even more unhealthy because of their limited options. So let's support programs such as this and through active participation. Now, the price gap between healthy and unhealthy foods is bad for everyone, and unfortunately not everyone can afford to feed their families these healthy foods even when they want to. So low-income and minority groups are the most affected by this negative gap, and it creates an entire population that is prone to health risks and even death. So let's not let this continue. Food deserts should be fixed. A community filled with low-income members should not be forced to live in a system that does nothing for them. nothing except sicken and isolate them. So at the very least, as a start, let's bring awareness and be active in making some sort of change. Thank you very much.